Hi, guys. Welcome to our daily encounter. Today we read of a beautiful blessing that Jacob pronounces over Joseph and his sons. And it goes like this. It's found in Genesis chapter 48 in verses 15 and 16. It says, "He blessed Joseph and said, 'The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and may my name live on in them, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth.'" So this is a very interesting blessing, and not only because it's a blessing, but also in the way that it reveals how Jacob contextualized his own life. And I think that this is very instructive for us as we too must in some way contextualize our own lives as we reflect on them. Notice what he does. He recognizes both the past, the present, and the future in this blessing. First, he talks about the past in recognizing the spiritual heritage that he had both in his father and his grandfather. It says, "The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked." Jacob recognized the spiritual heritage that he had in his father Isaac and his grandfather Abraham. And he knew that who he was and the blessings that he had received and the spiritual relationship that he had with God was something that was handed down to him generationally. And he was able to recognize those who had gone before him and had benefited him by handing those things down. And when we are contextualizing our lives, I think it's very important for us to recognize that as well. To recognize that where we are today is a lot to do with the people who have gone on before us, especially for those who have grown up in the church, maybe grew up already hearing about the gospel and about Jesus Christ and things like that. We've had perhaps guardians, whether it be parents or other people who watched over us and took care of us growing up and passed on the faith to us. Or if we just look back to the people who initially gave it to us, maybe our parents weren't people of faith, but we could look back to the person who first shared the gospel with us and handed down the truths of Christianity to us in that way. And we can look to the past and appreciate the people who had passed on to us these significant truths about Christ, about God, about ourselves, and recognize that we are where we are today because of the other people in the past who have helped us get where we are today. But he doesn't stop there. If we just stop there, we might think, well, that's great. My parents are these great spiritual people, and they're very much looked up to in the Christian community. And so I can kind of sit back and kind of just ride the waves of their spirituality and not really take on a faith of my own. Well, that would be going to an extreme. Jacob knew that, yes, he had a great spiritual heritage, but that doesn't mean that he can just kind of, ride the waves of what his father and grandfather did, but he himself personally had to establish a relationship with God. And he mentions that as he continues on. He says, after talking about the God before whom his fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, he says, "The God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day." He talks about the angel who has redeemed me from all evil. At some point in Jacob's life, God wasn't just the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac, but he was God, the God of himself as well. He had personally experienced God's shepherding over his life and God's redeeming him from evil. And if anyone had evil in their lives, it was Jacob. He had dealt with a lot of hardships and trials. You could go all the way back to Esau persecuting him, all the way back to Laban, how Laban deceived him, how Laban switched wages with him. You could talk about how he lost his wife Sarah. I'm sorry, not Sarah, Rachel there. And all the hardships, what he went through with Shechem, his oldest son, sleeping with his concubine. There's just so much that Jacob had to endure, but God was his shepherd, and he was redeeming Jacob through all the evils of his day. And Jacob, through all the struggles, through the trials, had found in himself his own faith that, yes, is attributed to those who handed it down to him, but not only was it handed down to him, but it had personally become his. And that's important for us to realize, that at some point in our lives, it's got to be not just the faith of our fathers or our grandfathers or the faith of the person who shared the gospel with us. It's got to become our own. We have to take ownership of our faith and say, this is something that has been given to me, and I'm going to safeguard it, and I'm going to let it flourish in my life to where God will be my God personally. And I'll establish a personal relationship with God myself and have that relationship with God in that very personal way. But he doesn't stop there. So you don't want to get too focused on self either. You don't want to say, well, my spirituality is my own, and take such ownership of it and become so self-focused that we forget to pass it down to others. And that brings us to how Jacob looked to the future. As he continues on with the blessing, he says, bless the lads, and may my name live on in them, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. So Jacob wanted his name to live on in his children, which was a good thing in Jacob's case. His name would represent the blessings. His name would represent the spiritual heritage that was passed down to him. In him passing down his name, that would be a good thing for the children. And as he passed down his name, as he passed on his legacy, we could say, that legacy would grow as the children grew. And as they multiplied, so his name would multiply, and so his legacy would grow. And so Jacob was not just interested in the past. He wasn't just interested in his own spirituality. He was interested also in the legacy that he would leave behind, and for the benefit of future generations that would come after him. And of course, that's important for us as well, to not get so self-focused that we don't forget that, hey, this faith that we have is very valuable and very precious. And just as it has been handed down to us, we need to hand it down to others, whether it's our children and our grandchildren, or it's just people that we interact with, our friends, our coworkers, other people that we can share the truths of the gospel with, and hand that very precious message on. And when we do that, we're really passing on our own legacy, because as they take that same truth and they pass it on to others, and as our children grow and multiply into more children, and maybe they share the faith with people, our legacy grows with that. And we actually become participants in the growth of the gospel and the movement of the kingdom on this earth. So it's a very powerful thing to think about. So as we do our readings today, and we come across this blessing that Jacob gives over Joseph and his sons, let's be encouraged to be able to contextualize our lives the way that Jacob did, appreciating the past, appreciating the people who have helped us get where we are today, but recognizing that they got us where we are today so that we could take ownership of the faith that has been handed down to us and do something with it, and build up our own relationship with God. But then not to stop there, but also to pass it down to other people, whether it's our children and grandchildren, or to other people that we can share the gospel with. And as we do that, the truth of the gospel is perpetuated generation after generation after generation. And that's the way that the gospel will continue on this earth. And not only just continue on in years, but grow in the amount of people who are surrendering their lives to Christ and having the borders of the kingdom spread all the more. It can be a very powerful thing if we are faithful in being able to contextualize our lives in this way. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. And with that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.